Without further ado, let's bring Jan on and let's talk about this subject called grief. Jan Warner, thank you again for being here on Circles.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I wonder, because we don't know how many people have been on our previous conversations, if you could just spend a few moments in telling us about your journey, the loss, and kind of your journey to now what has turned into a mission, it sounds like, for you to help other people who are going through this process of grief. Could you give us a little backstory?
Sure. And also, if anybody read what I wrote in my blurb, I said I don't speak from a script, I speak from my heart. So I am just going to mention why I said I was okay and not okay. I am at the moment, if you could see where I am, I'm at an inn on a seafront that's absolutely beautiful in Massachusetts. But I didn't want to be here. I was supposed to go home, and there were trees down on the line, and my train went not where I was going, but someplace else. And that reminds me about grief, because the people that are trying to cheer me up and tell me how wonderful it is I'm here are not the people I relate to. The people that are supporting me in a way that I like to be supported are saying, I can't believe this happened to you. I know how much you wanted to go home and do what you had to do last night, but I'm also glad you're someplace beautiful. They could see both sides. And that's how I feel about grief, is don't discount that. Don't tell me my husband's been dead for 14 years and I should be over it by now. He's still dead. I'm still upset. It's okay. But I can also learn about joy. Um, for those of you that don't know me, my husband, I'm laughing because when I met him, he's very handsome, very charming. He always said he wanted me to say how gorgeous he was. So I would always tell him that. But he lied about his age. He said he was 10 years younger than he really was. And when I found out how old he was, I thought, oh my goodness, I bet he's going to die before me. And I planned for it in my head. I thought, well, I'm going to be sad and I'm going to miss him, but I'll be okay. I didn't know that I would feel totally annihilated, like those houses you see in hurricanes where people go back and there's nothing left but sticks. That was how I felt. I used to say, we died instead of he died. And I still do sometimes. And I don't do it on purpose. I'll just go, and then we died. No, 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 he died. And so the past 14 years for me have been a process of rebuilding and learning how to live without him, being alive. I hope he's with me. Some people totally believe that their loved ones are with them. I like to think that he is, but even if he is, he's not. I miss his body. I mean, I'm still in my earthly body. So I find that life for me in any circumstance is that back and forth where I accept my sadness. Somebody wrote on Grief Speaks Out today that sadness is their shadow. That sadness is my shadow. It comes along with me. I can't get rid of it. But it's okay, because if I if I have the sadness because I had so much love. So that's been my journey, not to discount my grief, but to say, here are all the wonderful things about it. And I said today, and we'll get to it, that I wanted to talk about finding meaning and finding purpose, because so many of us feel when somebody we love dies, or more than one person or pet or anybody that we love, or we have a huge change in our life that we didn't plan for, that we don't feel like there's any meaning left or that there's any purpose left. So how do you start looking outward instead of just inward and find meaning again?
Yeah, I absolutely love finding meaning and finding purpose. Um, I want to touch a little bit on what you had said earlier, Jan, and I think for me in my work in grief and crisis, it's been a little bit of a gray area, meaning I know that some believe we never get over, while others believe they do, or maybe they explain it in a way as they found a way to move on and move forward. Could you touch on that in what you feel? Meaning, do we ever kind of get over and on? We always carry the meaning and the purpose of our loved one with us. We can actually recreate ourselves and start over and continue to move forward. You follow kind of where I'm going with this, Jan? I'm just kind
I
of
do.
curious your perspective. Yeah.
Sure. I do know people who say that they've asked to be released from grief and feel that they have, and that somebody described it as walking in the sunshine again. That's not me. I feel like it's a layer. If I had like a huge cake, I would have like a dark black grief layer. And then I'd have layers of all the different kinds of things that I've been able to do in my life that have given me joy that I would not have expected to have happened to me. So to me, I'm a holder honor. It's my husband and the people I love who have died that come forward with me. I don't feel any need to leave them behind. I can have a really full life and still love them and still miss them. I don't have to forget about them or let go of them. Um, I had this, if you believe people talk to you, I don't know if I made it up or he really said it, but I was somewhere after my husband died, probably about a year. And I was sitting there very conscious of the fact I was by myself. And I heard him say, you know, when you used to ask me go places with you, I would say no all the time. Now I can come with you everywhere because he's not fixed in time or space anymore. I don't really understand it because I'm still alive, but I feel like he's always with me. And a lot of what he does and a lot of the purpose I have come from things that he's taught me.
Yeah. I love it. You just gave me a perspective, and friends, I don't know if it hit you like it hit me, but the way I interpreted it is I can take my loss, if you would, with me, and it never has to be not with me for me to be okay. You just kind of spun that for me, Jen. You gave me a different perspective of I can it having grief or remembering a loved one who I've lost doesn't mean that I'm broken in some way or I'm not whole in some way. In fact, it actually means I'm more whole because I have space within my heart and soul to hold the memory of someone who's passed and yet still be fully present in maybe a new relationship or a new part of my life that I'm in here. I don't have to let the one be dead and gone, pardon my expression, but I can still have them in my heart and still be me and fully me and be able to move on. Yes?
Yeah, a big thing for me was and it took me 4 years to get to this idea was that I wanted my husband's life to be more important to me than his death. I was focusing on his death all the time and how it
Mm,
had destroyed everything. And then I went, wait a minute, this was a man, he was a recovering alcoholic who spent his whole life helping other people. If I only thought about him being dead, I was cheating myself and us. That I want to remember his his life, his laughter, his joy, everything he taught me. And I mean, I can, if you asked me sometime, I could spend an hour telling you every detail of the night he died and the morning after. But I also can tell you all the wonderful things we shared. And I've learned to, because grief steals your memories a lot of times, it makes memory painful. And I was like, put in your favorite curse word, grief. You're not taking my memories, they're mine, and they were good ones. And so I'm going to reclaim my memories. And then the only other thing I want to address is I like the metaphor of mosaics. Broken pieces can make beautiful things. So I think, to be quite honest, if you've been alive in the world for a certain time, most people are a little bit broken, some people more than others. But just because you're broken doesn't mean you can't put yourself back together in a way that makes something beautiful.
yeah, very, very well said. Now you lost your husband how long ago, Jan?
14 years, which is
Yeah.
crazy. I can't, it's hard to believe it because he feels very alive. I used to say he was the most alive dead person I know until I started doing Grief Speaks Out, and then I realized, and I'm sure you feel this way, all our loved ones are alive. It doesn't matter that they're not physically here anymore. We keep them alive because we love them. So they the thing about say their names, it's like we want people to remember them. Most of us, not everybody. Some people don't like to talk about things. But most people I know, if I say, what do you miss about your mom or your sister or your child or your brother or your husband or whoever, they love it, because even if somebody's been dead, the longest one I had on Grief Speaks Out was somebody, an older woman, who said that she'd missed her daughter who died for 74 years. And that seemed really normal to me, because why would I want to forget the most important person in my life? It seems silly. It's called amnesia, if you forget something important to you. So
That's beautifully said, friends. Did you catch that? It's called amnesia if you forget something that's happened beautifully to you or someone who was beautifully to you. That was brilliantly said. I wonder, and I know there's many people who talk about grief, Jan, there's many experts on grief, etc. And there's a lot of templates out there, the stages of grief, the phases of grief, but I wonder if you could take us through your personal experience, maybe a little bit of that roller coaster, the pain, maybe what, and then I want to get into finding purpose and meaning as well. But can you take us through just what the flow of grief felt like to you? Sadness, anger, happy. Can you take us on a journey a little bit with how you
sure.
experienced grief in your life?
And I do want to say, because it's very important, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross did not believe there were stages of grief. Those stages were meant for people that are dying. So anybody that tells you that you're going to go through stages in an orderly manner, you're not, probably not. Anger, denial, anything, it's going to come back. It's normal. I mean, what people say when they hear other grieving people is, oh, I thought I was crazy. Oh, I thought this was unusual. Grief is like, you think you're doing fine and then you're not, or you think you're not doing fine and then you are, and you feel guilty or you don't feel guilty. It's all part of it. And so the stages of grief are, um, a roller coaster is a good thing. It's not a straight line. It's not linear. And so look for those people, the people that have suffered loss and understand that there's nothing wrong with you. If somebody says to you, even a religious person or a spiritual guide or a psychiatrist, you should be over it by now, that's a good clue that they don't really understand what grieving is about. For me, um, my husband was misdiagnosed. He had stage 4 cancer. We had this rough, by the time we got the correct diagnosis, he died 6 weeks later. He got to die at home. I was very grateful that I got to spend his dying time with me. I got to see his dying time with me, his dying time with him. It's funny how I still do that. So then he was dead, and I couldn't believe it. Um, I think that's part of it too. I mean, obviously, I'm not delusional. I know he's not here anymore, but that doesn't mean that I can accept it 100%, even now. Um, and at first, and some of you have heard me say this, I really thought he was going to come get me. I couldn't believe that I would have to be here alone. And I would literally go to sleep at night with my hand up in the air. But I also have a really dark sense of humor, and I lived in an apartment building. So I pictured him, going through all the apartments above me going, excuse me, I'm going to get my wife. And I sat on a park bench that I had a plaque on with our names on it. And I said, you're not going to come get me here either, are you? And so then I had to deal with the fact that I was still alive. And then I thought, well, maybe I should go to him. Maybe that's what I'm supposed to do. And I researched suicide. I thought about suicide. There's this really bizarre, I didn't buy it, but there's this really bizarre thing you can buy called Do It With Betty. And it's a tape of how to kill yourself. And I finally came to the realization that I couldn't do that to the people that love me. And so if I wasn't going to be taken, if I wasn't going to die of a broken heart, and I wasn't going to take my own life, what was I going to do? Because my husband was kind of thuggy. He grew up in a violent neighborhood, and he was charming, but he was also rough and tough. So he loved that we called each other our raison d'etre, our reason for being. So if my reason for being was gone, what was my reason for being? Because I really felt like an empty space. But this didn't happen right away. I had to sort of get past that initial sense of being totally separate from the world, wanting to isolate completely. I would give myself one chore every day. I bought a plaque that said have an adequate day, which I still have because have a good day seemed too much pressure. So I had to get through that part where it was all chaos and it was all tears to a point where I could even think. And that was when I started thinking, if I'm here, what am I going to do? And because he was a recovering alcoholic who always made himself available to other addicts and other alcoholics 24/7. When I first met him, he told me, you're always going to come forth. It's going to be God, the program, me, and then you, because if it's in any other order, I'll be a drunk and I won't be any good to you. So I thought, well, I'll make myself available to other grieving people. And the Facebook page, I started writing a blog thinking if I reached one person, it was enough. And then the Facebook page I've been doing for 10 years. And I honestly never thought that I would have a book or that so many people from all around the world would. I had somebody on Grief Speaks Out from South Korea the other day. That's I think that's probably the most important thing because I feel so alone in my grieving a lot of times. It's in every country, there are people that are feeling exactly the way that you're feeling or similar. There's nothing that you're feeling or doing that isn't common. And it doesn't take away the sense of being alone. I had this weird thing happen. I was somewhere the other day and an older couple walked by holding hands. And I had that old feeling of, no, that's supposed to be me. It's not me. I'm so alone. And then it was like, okay, but I'm also this. And I shifted my attention to something else. But that's something that's changed in me over the years. It's taken me way too long. It's just to say, not isn't normal, but this is how I am right now. Maybe I'll be different later. And the other important thing I want to say is a lot of magical things have happened to me over the years. I wouldn't have wanted to miss, especially my granddaughter, but I've had lots of adventures and I've also been able to help a lot of people. So if I had killed myself or I had died in that first year when I really wanted to, it probably wouldn't have been a good thing. So I call some people, I have heard this again, but they like this. I call being alive decorating the waiting room. There's a part of me that's just waiting to be together with my husband and other people I love who have died. But if I'm going to be here, I want to make the waiting room as full of adventure and service as I possibly can.
Yeah. You make me think a lot of people are following the conversation and being touched. The chat is very, very full. Um, Lisa had written that she was grieving the loss of a 42-year marriage
Mm,
due to an ongoing 3+ year affair. The
right.
man and the life we shared has died. Those are such powerful words. The man and the life that we shared had died. That's pretty powerful. You said something, Jen. It made me think. In my work in hospice and palliative care, I've often served both the dying and the living. Meaning, the couple had been married for 70 years, 70. She died and then, or he died. It's really interesting. I wondered if you could give us your opinion maybe on this, why it is maybe the man dies sooner. I don't know what they're, medically or scientifically or what your thoughts are on that, but I've watched that many times to where the husband leaves and now the wife tries to recover. She goes around the house alone. The family tries to support the best they can, but she's still lonely. And it seems like that loneliness kind of kicks in and starts pulling her to that other side, right? What are your thoughts about that? Do you feel that that actually pulls someone to the other side?
Well, that's a complicated question. It didn't pull me. I really wanted to go, and I'm still here. So I can't answer that. I mean,
Yeah.
I think I'm going to go for a physical instead of a spiritual explanation. Grief is physically stressful. on your body, and your heart. That's why people talk about broken heart syndrome. An awful lot of people have physical problems after somebody they love die. It's also, or the breakup of a marriage when somebody isn't who you thought they were. There's lots of things that you can grieve for. So it's physically stressful, it's emotionally stressful, and also for me, self-care was difficult. It's still difficult, to get on. I finally bought a treadmill, to get on that treadmill and to say, take a shower, and do the things that you need to do to be careful of your own being, because that's for myself, but also that's, again, I have this exercise, and I mentioned this the last time I did circles, of looking into my husband's eyes the way I remember him, or in a photograph, and saying, what am I supposed to do now? How am I going to handle this? And listen. And I'm either hearing what he's telling me because his spirit is around me and caring for me, or I'm imagining because he knew me better than anybody else. So yeah, I think the loneliness is something that we live with. And the only reason I'm hesitating is they're saying that loneliness is an epidemic in this country right now, and around the world. So even if you haven't, the thing about grief is, I had a kind of love that so many people go their whole life without ever having. So that's where, to me, finding meaning comes in. And it could be, as somebody said, my meaning is that I breathe every day and I get through the day. It could be that small. It could be being in the grocery store and saying to the person at the checkout counter, your hair is really pretty, and watch their face light up. Or it could be thinking about somebody you love and what they loved, and if they love playing golf, maybe having a golf tournament in their name. Or it could be, you know, something that turned into something bigger, like what I'm doing. A lot of people write books. A lot of people whose children have taken their own lives spend their lives supporting other children who are being bullied. What I started thinking about recently, and forgive me for saying the word because normally I don't even say it and things like this, just the political situation all around the world, no matter what side you're on, is very stressful. The world is hurting. I was supposed to go to Ukraine tomorrow, and I'm not going because the person that I was going to visit, that was going to take me around, his hometown was bombed. And he's trying desperately to get his father out of the country, and his father's really stubborn and he's not sure he'll be willing to go, and they're going to bomb the power plant is what they're expecting. So he's got real problems. But there are so many people in every community that could do with a kindness. Somebody crochets blankets for babies. So to me, finding meaning, that's what I mean, is if I think about myself, I think it's an AA expression, but my husband used to say, if you live in your head, you live in a very bad neighborhood. And that's really true about me. It's like my mind just starts feeding on myself, and I start thinking, how terrible everything is. But if I'm talking to somebody else or listening to somebody else and then taking even a small action to help them, I'm not thinking about me, I'm thinking about them. So to me, that's where service comes in, and why it's so helpful. People say, oh, you do Grief Speaks Out because it's cathartic for your own grief. It's like, no. I'll be honest with you. You said I was passionate about grief. If I never heard the word grief again in my life, I would be so happy. I wish people would stop dying. I wish people would stop grieving. I wish nobody needed circles or any grief support thing. What I'm passionate about is when you are suffering. I hate suffering. When you are suffering, is how do you take that suffering and be able to do something besides continue suffering? You're going to keep suffering. I mean, it's not going to go away in my mind completely. But for me, it's what somebody told me, whose husband had died, and then her grown son, her only child, died, said, I can't do anything about the pain, but that will gentle down over time. But what I can tell you is keep thinking about the love. Keep thinking about the love. And this was she's passed on now, but she was a little woman, like 4 foot tan with a cloud of gray hair named Celeste, who just helped so many people in her community. She visited people in prison, she visited people in hospice. Everywhere she went, every day she spent with her own sadness, but also making sure that other people's sadness was less because of her. So she's sort of
Yeah,
a role model to me.
that is beautiful. You know, when I hear you, Jan, you make me think about, I believe that when we are in touch with our own grief, when we are in touch with our own suffering to a depth, it causes us to be very tuned into, aware of, keen to other people's suffering and pain. And it almost brings us emotional sadness or fear or whatever because of witnessing what someone else is going through, right? Does that make sense? My son plays football, and last night was our opening high school football game. And we were doing really good, up by 3 or 4 touchdowns. And it was kind of like a part of the last part of the game, and an opposite team member got hurt. Um, Thankfully, he's getting better. But at the moment, it was so hard. I was right there on the sidelines, Jen, and I saw it. And immediately my heart went, oh my God, the parents, the siblings, the school, the coaches, this just a flood of painful emotion overcame me. I was sad for him, right? I
Mm-hmm.
wonder, do you feel that our depth of connection to our own grief can cause us to be connected to someone else's suffering and grief to the point where it can make us emotional? We're crying, we're almost burdening, shouldering that burden for them. Does that make sense?
It
Have you
does.
found that?
It makes sense. It's I think grief can do it can make you shut down completely and go numb because you just can't handle one more emotion. It can give you grief is not depression, grief is not PTSD, but it can cause those things. But it can also make your heart more open and more willing to um what I love about Grief Speaks Out, which is my Facebook page, is I'm not sure why, but I'm getting a lot more people posting really long posts where they're definitely supporting other people. Somebody was talking about he didn't know how to support his dad when his mom died. And somebody wrote and said, I am that dad. Let me tell you how it was with my son. So there is that ability to reach out and support other people. It's a question. I don't know what it's a question of. I don't know what made me decide that it wasn't a good idea for me to stay in bed the rest of my life, because it was tempting. It's kind of still tempting. But there was something in me, and well, maybe I will. It's. I always quote Mary Oliver, a poet, who said, "What is it that you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" And part of what I plan to do with it is just allow myself to collapse and waste time. But I also want to have that part where I can look at myself and say, "Oh." Like I said, a simple thing. During the pandemic, before the pandemic, I had a taxi driver, and he said I was the first fare he'd had in, I don't know, 3 days. And so I gave him $40 for a $5 fare, and he started to cry. So there's opportunities all over to make a difference in somebody's life. And so that part of it is opening up. The sad is what I was saying before. It's selfish. It's so I'm here in this beautiful place by the sea that I don't want to be in, but instead of feeling sorry for myself, I'm talking to you. I'm doing Grief Speaks Out. I feel like I have a purpose, and eventually I'll get over myself and I'll have a good time someplace where I want to be. But it's like, I think it's for me, having a purpose that gives me something to cling on to. Um,
Yes.
and
Yes.
it seems to have, like I'll say, because I do 7 posts. There's, if for those of you that don't know about Grief Speaks Out, there are 7 posts every day, and some days I'll go, I just, that's about it. There's no words. And then somebody will say, your site saved my life. So I don't do it for that, but we all have that possibility, is to really come into somebody's life in a small way or a big way and make a difference. It's that starfish thing, that you can't throw all the starfish back in the sea, but the one that you can throw back, you made a big difference in their life. But it's like, I've always done volunteer work, like something I visited federal prisoners. and people would say, they would say, why do you visit federal prisoners? And people would say, um, because I want to help them, because I want to do this. And I always said, I do it for me, because it makes me feel better about myself that
Yep.
I'm doing something nice for somebody else.
Yeah, I love it. And friends, speaking of grieving, in the moment I am, because I am having technical difficulties on my phone, so I cannot see all of you in the chat. I'm trying to put Jan's link to her Facebook page in the chat, and I have no chat on my side, friends. So I apologize for that. But if you go to Facebook and go to search Grief Speaks Out, you'll find Jan's page there, which you can find the posts that she's talking about. I look through them often. I love the interaction and the engagement. And I see what you were sharing with Jan about people are now um, on the page, but then not only drawing support from you, but then reciprocating that support to others, like you were saying in their comments. Friends, you also want to, if you don't have a copy of Jan's book, you can find Grief Day by Day. Just simply search Jan Warner Grief, and you're going to find all of the resources there. A couple of things that you said earlier that struck me, Jan, when you said, I don't know if our loved ones travel with us, and you had said something about maybe hearing your late husband's voice, etc. I was somewhere the other day and I heard someone say Jeffrey just really profoundly. And my mother always called me Jeffrey when she was mad at me. It's my full name. And I stopped and turned and I thought for sure my mother was right there in the same room. It had the same tone, the inflection, everything about it. And it just, and my mom has been gone for some time, but it reverberated in my soul. So you make me chuckle when I think they're there. I think mama slipped in somebody else's persona, if you would, and just lashed out at me just to let me know that she was still watching me. Anyway, my little humor, but
It could be. I mean, we were talking about this in the car yesterday with my daughter and granddaughter, who's 11. They call it the great unknown. You know, it's people believe things very strongly. Um, there's a book called Gathering at the Doorway that was put together by Camille Dan, and there are different chapters written by different people. I'm the only one that was skeptical. People from different ages, different cultures, men and women, they all write about their experiences with people who have transitioned. I kind of like that word. That's not my word, but who have transitioned. And I was the only one that had any skepticism at all. So,
yeah,
but there are also people that believe that when we die, we die. What's changed my opinion about it is the fact that when I watched some things on quantum physics, the universe is so big, there's actually room for all of us. So, you know, I thought at one point in my life, I thought, well, there's been billions of human beings. How could there be room for all those souls? But the universe is, we don't understand the universe. We can't, our scientific instruments can't go far enough to the depths of it. So who knows?
yeah,
But yeah, it's the only thing that makes sense to me. That our journey continues. It allows me to function, thinking
yeah,
that my husband's with me and that when I die, um, I'll be reunited with him and I can, you know, share all the things I've done with him and hear what he. I make the joke of, you know, I want to ask him what he thinks about his death turning into a career for me because that's totally insane. Um, so that was somebody once asked me, "Do you joke with your dad?" Which I thought was a very good question because I do. You know, he's still very alive to me, and but yeah, that's I really hope that we all get to be united with those we love and our pets, and but I have no control over it. I don't think so.
yeah, yeah. No, well,
But well, for some things I think, well, you know, faith is important. You know, sometimes when somebody we love dies, our faith gets shattered. But it's I don't ask what's normal anymore because nothing seems normal really. It's am I living a kind of life that serves the kind of life I want to live? And sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not. And small steps, you know, it's I can't do what I can't do, and maybe I can do something tomorrow that I couldn't do today. Um, so
yeah, well said. I want to take us, and friends, I want to encourage you that if you have questions and thoughts, that we're going to open up in a little bit. I'd love for you to get ready to share. Um, before we go there, I'd love for us to touch a little bit about something you said about suffering, Jan, and how you have been able to turn actually suffering into a fuel, if you would, to to fuel your efforts to do something good for someone else. So what I heard you say is I've been able to take my own suffering and while it did its work in me, and one of the ways I've been able to honor that suffering is by help others. Did I get that right? Did I say that right? Is that kind of what I hear you saying? That's a profound ability to take what's happening to us that's causing us to suffer and then use that as fuel to go help someone else. Yeah.
I guess that would be a way to put it. I'm sort of thinking on it for a minute. It sounds sort of more higher than I feel it is. Because there are some people that will say, I'm so grateful that something bad happened to me and name the bad thing. I'm not grateful my husband died. And I don't think that suffering necessarily makes me more compassionate or loving. Sometimes I had a widow once email me and say, her husband dying turned her into Darth Vader. Sometimes it makes me angry and grouchy and snarly and not want to be around people. I think it's more, for me, a philosophical principle that, because people also think that I love people because of what I do. And I love some people, but not all of them, to be perfectly honest. I like when I say I'm honest, I just am. But my suffering makes me, I think, more sensitive. I've always been a very hypersensitive person. My daughter says that my hypersensitivity is annoying. And I understand why she would feel that. But for me, it's given me an ability to be empathetic to other people and to try and find commonality with them. So everybody has a story, and to listen to what their story is. The one thing I have no tolerance for is intolerance. So if you're going to hate a group of people for no particular reason except you hate a group of people, I'm not going to be empathetic with you. But there's so much unnecessary, and I'm also a history buff. So from the beginning of time, there has always been so much unnecessary cruelty. Like, something that happens a lot to grieving people is that people they count on stop talking to them, even family members. So it's like, I feel like we're all like little lights or little warm blankets that are trying to restore the balance. I did a conference years ago with people that have survived genocide and political terror, even going to Ukraine. I was hoping the fact that, like a New York grandmother showing up in Ukraine, people would feel that they were being supported, and at work they did. I can't stop Putin bombing, but I can be a presence that says, I hear your story. I'm going to take your story back and tell people about what you're suffering. And there seems to be something soothing in that. So I'm not trying to make people feel better, although that's a result. I think that for me, to have people witness how I'm really feeling and accept that is what makes me feel better, not people trying to make me feel better, which I find very irritating, to be honest. So I'm not sure if the suffering is a fuel or it's just my sensitivity to how much suffering there is in so many people's lives and my helplessness in changing the world. What I can do is listen and say, I also use another metaphor is I feel like the world is this huge canvas and you can't look at the whole thing at one time. It's too big. So some people get stuck and they only look at the really ugly stuff and they get really depressed and really just can't even move. And then there are some people that only look at the pretty stuff and they go, it's all good and it's wonderful and your loved ones are in a better place. And that's not it either. It's if you can change your focus. So if I can say, I really don't want to be where I am today, but look over there. My goodness, the ocean is beautiful. I'm really sad my husband died. Oh, I'm actually doing an exercise that I learned that's in my book that I forgot about. It's this is what I feel. I am sad. Yes, I am sad, but what else am I? Oh, I'm happy that My granddaughter did very well in the horse show. Yes, I'm very happy that my granddaughter did very well in her horse show, but what am I? Uh, I'm sad that I'm here by myself because I wish my husband was here. Yes, I feel desperate about my husband being dead, but what else am I? And when you get stuck, you keep going because we have so many different parts of ourselves that we never acknowledge. Like we might have had something really funny happen during the day, and we think of us as being totally sad people, and we forget that we actually laughed. So to keep shifting and looking for different things that you're not seeing because you're locked into something that's so powerful and real in your life.
Yeah, that's I hope you caught that, friends. That's a great tool to use. Again, I can't see the chat, so I apologize. I know early on you all were sharing some of your own grieving that you're going through right now, but that's a beautiful tool to be able to acknowledge right now, yes, I'm sad. And just for a half a second to acknowledge I'm sad, meaning you're honoring those feelings, yet I'm also happy that. I'm sad, but I'm also happy that. That's a beautiful tool, exercise, Jan. Thank you for that. Because we could use that throughout our lives consistently. And my wife, I call it compartmentalizing. She has this unique gift to compartmentalize everything, meaning she can be in that compartment. I want to solve something and I want to spend as much time as it needs to resolve it right now. And she only has an allotted time for it. And then when she's done with that time, she sticks it in a compartment and then she can move on and do something for her work, or she can lead her cheer team, or she can go for a walk with her friend. And it's like she's got all these different lives, but her ability to turn this on for a moment when she needs to and then turn it off and go on to the next thing is pretty profound. So I kind of parallel what you just said with that too. I need to be able to acknowledge this grief, but I can't let it overrun me and take me out for the entire day, the entire week, right? I've got to be able to shift it. And by shifting it and seeing things that are good in my life that I am thankful for, is a way for, I think, me to be able to be more in control of grief rather than grief being in control of me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, emotions are like little kids. If you don't pay attention to them, they get louder. So the idea, like people always say, follow your bliss. I actually said this last. I invented this on Circles the last time. Is I follow my authenticity. So you're gonna know. That's why when you asked me how I was, I couldn't say, "Oh, I'm doing great, Jeff." I can't do that if I'm not
Yeah.
feeling great. So yeah, it's and people have because I have to tell you, this is awful. But this, when you said compartmentalize, what I thought was, yeah, I compartmentalize like the Titanic. My compartments are leaky, and I'm sinking, and I'm bailing as fast as I can, which isn't really true because I'm not going to sink. I've been floating here for the past 14 years, and sometimes I've been soaring. So, and the other thing is to acknowledge when you do something good. I talk about that all the time because I talk about it with my friends. I became friends with a famous historian in England, and she's so insecure. It doesn't matter what you've achieved in life, is you have to be able, if on Amazon 50 people say my book is their true companion and one person says that it's useless, I need to pay attention to the people that are saying that it's a good thing, not the one person that found it useless, because God bless that person. They just need something else. It doesn't really have anything to do with me. But that's, as human beings, I'm really sensitive anyway. It's just one thing to say I don't care what other people think, but you kind of do a little bit. So it's
Yeah.
I guess what I keep saying is it's complicated. Don't make it simple for me, because my life is, I don't know how to make it simple. It's complicated. I have all kinds of emotions, and I do as much as I can, and that's good enough, which
Yeah.
is what my parents never said to me. That's the other thing, is some of us have had traumatic childhoods where we had parents that told us that we're never going to be good enough, or spouses or friends that said that, and sometimes they live in our bones. But the truth is, like the woman said on Grief Speaks Out, if you're still breathing and you came on Circles or you said hello to somebody today, that's enough.
Yeah. I love it. Somebody dropped in the chat. Would you believe it? There must have been a miracle that's happened because now I can see my chat. So you're powerful. You're powerful, Jen. You're affecting technology here with your love that you're giving out. But the point, I think it was Margie who said, it helps me to flip my grief into gratitude. They coexist. I love
Yes.
that. From grief to gratitude, but they coexist, right? Yeah.
Exactly. That's for me, which is not everybody can do this. I hold everything at the same time. That's why when people ask me, how are you? Now I just say, I'm always the same. The wonderful things are wonderful and the bits that suck, suck. And I never used to say that. I used to say that's a bad word. I can't say that. But now I just say it. It's life is complex, and grief and gratitude. I'm so grateful for the love I had in my life. I'm so grateful for so many things. I'm even grateful for the beautiful ocean that I don't want to be sitting next to because I want to be home. It's I'm always grateful for indoor plumbing. I've traveled places where people don't have indoor plumbing. So when things get really bad, I'm grateful that I can turn on the tap and water comes out. So and I have an ingratitude. I'm different than most people. I have a gratitude list and an ingratitude list. So you can do both sides.
I love it. I love it. It's a dichotomy. It really is. I think we grow up in a society that says, if we're happy, everything is good. If we're sad, everything is bad. We divide. If you're on this side, everything's right in your life. If you're on that side, everything's wrong in your life. And that's not true at all. So it definitely is. It definitely is a mindset shift to be able to acknowledge what I'm going through, but also acknowledge it's not me. It's just a part of what I'm experiencing. And with that said, of course, I've lost all connection to my app. So can you hear me okay, Jan? I don't know if you
Yes, I
can.
hear you
Oh,
fine.
so perfect.
So
I love it.
you made me responsible for fixing it. Now am I responsible for it all being messed up? Uh-oh. Did I lose you? Uh-oh, Jeff. Can the people in the room hear me? I don't know if you can moderate without Jeff.
I can hear you. My name's Janet. I hear you loud and clear.
I can hear you too. My name is Denise.
Oh, okay. Well, if you can all hear me until I don't know how to do this, it's a good example of winging it. But if any of you have any questions or anything you want to say, I don't know how to call on you, but I hear your voices. Does anybody want to ask a question?
Sure. My name's Janet again, and thank you for being a guest speaker. And I appreciate everything you said, and I listened, and Jeff, and read the comments. And I think we all deal with grief differently. I know that my grief is different when I lost my mom versus losing two of my sons, bonus children. I married a man with four. We lost our youngest and our oldest. And, dealing with people that are sick versus, the shock attack, died in a car accident at 18 type of thing. I also personally believe that faith helps. And yeah, I would have jumped in front of a train for either one of my kids. But
Right.
not so much my mom. She was 84. She's gone downhill for 18 months. And all she did was try to be strong for her three kids. And she was super strong and would say stuff like, I'm not ready till the Lord takes me. Well, you've been fighting it with dialysis and surgery and this and that and that. When are you going to just let the Lord take you? And then, eventually he did. She pulled a fast one. I moved from Massachusetts to Pennsylvania after my divorce in April. And she died on April Fool's Day. So here I find myself back. I know. And
I love,
it's not a
forgive
joke,
me for laughing, but I love your sense of humor about it.
Well, I know, but it's just like, okay, well, now I'm in Pennsylvania and you're not even here. But luckily I have some aunts and some cousins and, I'm making the best of it. Plus I left the state where my husband was at. And I need to just say one more thing. Personally, if my husband had died, I think the 7 months of restraining orders that he got on me and 4 arrests would have been way much easier had he been dead. Just saying. And I do not wish him dead. I wish him well. I wish him health and happiness. But I'm just saying, sometimes death is a relief. No.
Yeah, no, and I don't think it gets enough respect. I mean, my husband had been divorced more than once. It was my first marriage, and I said to him, "You don't have to worry about another divorce because I'll kill you." And I don't know if I would have, but when you believe in
Good for
somebody,
you,
and
Jackson. That's how I felt. I'll kill
yeah,
you.
when you believe in somebody and you start with love and you end up with a relationship failing, I mean that's real grief and anger, etc. and so forth. So to me, I don't compare grief. It's I respect anybody's grief about whatever they're grieving about, because it's up for the person to decide if it's something they're grieving about or not grieving. Like my parents were not the kind of people I grieve for. And what I learned was that was how I learned that grief is a gift. Because when people talk about how much they love their mom or dad and how much they miss them, I think it's sad I don't grieve for my parents. So it's kind of a strange thing. So
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
I hear that and I understand that. And it all depends, like you say, on the individual person and the relationship they have with the person. But you're right. Divorce after 29 years is a grieving process. And he kind of helped me through it by having me arrested 4 times. Do you know what I'm
Right.
saying? And most people get a year restraining order because they messed up the first couple of weeks. Well, I got a year and a half for 50 grand later, and he didn't even have a stupid attorney. So he got away scot free, and he got a year and a half. But you know what? It's all in. I personally believe in it's the way it's supposed to be. It's laid out that way. And the 5th time I got arrested, and they said, "Oh, intimidation of a witness and breaking the restraining order. Next time you're going to do 90 and 90." And all I could think about was, wow, 3 hots and a cot, and it's free, because I was in a hotel with no vehicle and for 10 months. But bottom line is, I'm marching. I'm happy. I'm moving forward. I'm grateful for the folks that come on circles, all the advice that the other ladies and gentlemen give, and the special speakers. I mean, it just can't be beat. That's
I
all. I'm
love it.
done. Thank you for
Well,
listening.
thank you for your spirit. I appreciate your spirit. That's what I find with the people in Ukraine when I went, is that people who just go through a lot and are able to maintain their spirit and their love. It's the first time in my life I ever canceled hotel reservations, and they said peace and victory and love. It's just
Wow.
it's amazing to me the courage that some
Can you
people have.
can't even fathom that? I can, and I think, wow, more power to them. One more quick question: where in Massachusetts are you? Looking at the water.
Rockport.
Oh, I know exactly where you are.
Yeah,
I was in Lake House.
when the train went back to Boston instead of New York, everything was booked out because it's summer and it's the weekend. So it's
Sure,
the one
sure.
place I could make reservations, which has nothing to do with grief. It just was
No, I know.
life.
But you're lucky you got to Rockport, because between Cape and all the seaside cities and areas, they're usually jamming.
Yeah.
So,
So
well, I hope you enjoy it. I hope you get out and walk on the beach and enjoy.
thank you. Is Jeff still gone?
Can you hear me, Jan?
Yeah. Oh, you came back. All right. Well, we had a little conversation without you, but I'm glad you're here because I have no idea what I'm doing.
You're doing
Technology wise.
you're doing fine. You're doing fine. I heard the question, comment. I love it. Anybody else? I'm going to just have to let you drive a little bit, Jan, if you can see the app. If somebody would do me a favor, just raise your hand if you have a comment, and then we'll bring you on and share. I think we probably have just a couple of more minutes, so maybe time for 1 or 2 more. Jan, are you okay with that?
I'm here as long as you want me to be. I got nowhere to go until tomorrow.
Perfect. So somebody else have a comment or a question that you would like to jump in here today? Please do.
Hi everyone, this is Rochelle. Thank you for this space. I'm just listening. My grandfather passed away last night.
Oh,
He was in the hospital for the last 2 weeks. His heart wasn't pumping correctly, so everything else started to kind of go downhill. They intubated him, and then they basically pulled the plug yesterday at 8 p.m. and he passed away 3 hours later. So I'm just listening, and just, if everybody can just say a prayer for me and my family, especially my mom, and my grandmother. So that's it.
you don't need to answer this, but would you like to share something about your grandfather and what you're going to miss about him being
Well,
here?
it's a little, I mean, like I said, I may sound a little selfish, a little bit. But, like, I have great memories. I know that he loved us. I know he loved me. I think it was just, I'm 40. I haven't been married, but I always envision my life and my story of walking down the aisle with him,
Mm-hmm.
walking me down the aisle. And so that kind of got to me last night, just knowing that there's so many things that I'm going through in my life now. I'm going through a breakup of 16 years, trying to pick up the
Right.
pieces on that. And then this happened. And then a lot of childhood trauma that I'm still dealing with that I hadn't dealt with. So that just kind of really just kind of took me a little bit, knowing that as I'm rewriting my story for this next part of my life, that part or that dream is also going to have to be rewritten also.
Yeah, that's not selfish at all. That's what grief is. Part of what we're grieving is the future, all the dreams that we had with the person, no matter how young or old they were when they died, that all the things we wanted to do with them. So thank you for being willing to share that. I'm grateful that you were willing to do that. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm so honored that we have the space going on. Thank you very much for sharing. And our thoughts and prayers are with you as well. Someone else. I'm gonna close the app, Jan, and I'm gonna come right back on because I can't see you and there's no way I can help you. So I'm gonna close you. Go ahead and moderate another question or comment, and then I'll be right back with you. Okay? See if I can resolve this technical issue on my side.
I'm laughing because I honestly I have no idea how to do apps. So does anybody else want to have a question or just say anything?
Yeah, I just want to give somebody an opportunity to share, and it'll take me 2 seconds to come back on. So go ahead, somebody else.
Hi, I just wanted to thank you, Jan, for Grief Speaks Out. It has helped me numerous times, like in the middle of the night, and I just go on there, and it's been amazing. And so I just wanted to say thank you for that platform.
Thank you. It means a lot to me. It's people like you. Whenever I feel like I try and post ahead, but sometimes I'll set the alarm for 4 o'clock in the morning to make sure everything's up. So I'm grateful. I wish that you didn't need it. I wish that whatever happened hadn't happened. But thank you for saying that to me. I want you to know that it really means a lot. That I don't take things like that lightly. So thank you.
Thank you.
So if anybody else wants to say anything, one of the reasons why I have Jeff moderate is I can't like talk and listen and look at raised hands at the same time. So
I see Bobby's hand up.
Go ahead, Bobby.
Hi, Jan. This is Margie. I have a question while we're waiting for Bobby.
okay.
I lost my husband 6 years ago. It was a 43-year relationship. We met each other in junior high school, as they call it back then.
Wow.
I have two beautiful children and two beautiful grandchildren, one of whom he knew, and we watched her for 3 years. She was the light of his life. And the other, he doesn't know on this earth, but I know he knows. And I've lost also in this 6 years my best friend, her sister, her cousin, who was like a sister, some very close people to us. So my kind of inner circle, of folks that we spent time with in those years are gone. I'm finding new circles of friends, and including through a bereavement group, including online, including church and faith. And I still struggle with how to help others who are grieving, like my dear friends who lost my friends and their spouses. And all I can do is be there for them, because I know that's all anybody could really do for me. But I just wonder if you had any thoughts about that or suggestions of, really how to help and what to say. We know people don't know what to say to us, and I find myself not sure really what to do. I have the empathy, obviously, and I want to help, and I think I do, but, and I know there's no formula because there's no right or wrong way to do this ever. There's no timeline. And when the grief hits, even 6 years later, 10 years, it's still just as deep and profound. So I thank you for the opportunity and the community, and it really does help.
Thank you. There's two things I say when people ask me that. One is to listen, because I think that's the best thing that you can do, because like you said, it's people say things that they really want to make you feel better. But I used to say this terrible thing when my husband first died. Somebody would say, "Can I do anything to help?" And I'd say, "Can you resurrect dead people?" And they'd say no. And I'd say, "Well, then there's nothing you can do to help," which was really mean. But it's true. You know, it's like the only thing I could really do to help you is to bring the person back who's not here anymore. So listen and ask. And the reason I say to ask is that I also know that what one person finds, like some people like help with, I don't know, housework or having you bring meals or flowers. Other people, I like to be alone. I don't want help. So to say, you know I can't change this, but do you have something you'd like me to do? And then the other thing is that I find most people want to do is to say, would you like to talk about whoever the person is that died? Because so many people get shut down and they are afraid to say something, especially as time goes by, because some people will say, "Why are you still talking about so and so? They died 5 years ago." So to say, whether it's they've recently died or it's been 15 years, like my daughter's best friend was killed by cancer when he was just 36, and every once in a while I'll say, "You want to talk about John?" Because I just want to open that door. But you're right; it's a tricky one, because it is what will make one person just absolutely delighted will make another person really upset. So listen, ask, and be willing to talk about the person that they love that's no longer there, if that's what they want to do, and
If
respect
that's what
them.
they want. Right. I love that too, because sometimes you'll say, "How can I help? What can I do?" They don't know. I mean, at the
Right? Yeah.
beginning, I didn't know. I just, so you find bits and pieces. Like I remember when somebody said, "Wow, I can't even imagine what you're going through." And to me, that felt very empathic without somebody making assumptions about, "Oh, I know, how you must feel," or "They're in a better place," those kinds of things. And something that kind of comes to your mind if it's not outwardly said is like, well, it could have been worse. At least you had 43 years. You had this loving relationship. And at a point, yes, true. But what do you mean it could be worse? This was my world, and it's pulled out from under me. But as time went on, I recognized that it could have been worse. My children could have been young. I could have had to go straight back to work, all kinds of things that I was blessed to receive. There's that gratitude piece that
Right.
comes in. And I don't want to assume, what anybody else should feel grateful for. But I love what you said about listen and ask, and just and be there to support, because that's really what we all need. And what you say is that somewhere around the world, people are feeling exactly what you're feeling. You think they're not. You really do believe you're alone in this, because it's unique. But yeah, we got to help one another.
That's what surprised me the most about Grief Speaks Out, and still does. I got a request for a copy of my book from somebody in Mongolia. I didn't even know there was Amazon.com in Mongolia. But it's like, it's this, no matter what culture it is, it's the same feeling. And it's just, there was a thing, a Facebook thing. I spend much too much of my life looking for memes, but it said, what happened to you may not have been the worst thing in the world, but it was the worst thing in your world. And I thought that was really important because I do that myself. You know, it's my friend in Ukraine always says, "How are you?" when he texts me, and I always throw up my hands and go, "Why are you asking me? You're in a war zone. I'm not." But
Right.
it's what's happening to me. It's the worst thing for me, and it doesn't matter if something worse is happening to somebody else. So you know, or when somebody says, "Well, it's going to be fine," or "Aren't you happy that you're?" It's like, no, 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 no. Yeah.
Right.
So I
Beautiful thing to
I
do.
really am a thing. That's something that I think is really important today when so many people are like, you know, everything, it's all good. It's like, I feel like it's disrespectful to, it's just, I want to be authentic. I want to be a real person. And I'm very lucky. I have mostly new friends because I also had people stop talking to me. But my new friends are all, we often start a meal with, "How are you? Fine. How are you? Fine." No, 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 no. Let's just talk about what we really feel because and most people's lives aren't fine all the time. Some people are.
Yeah. And I
So,
like what was said too about it's not so black and white. It's not, oh, I'm sad, so everything is colored sad, or oh, it's all good, everything is hunky dory. It is a combination plate, and
right.
I love finding that we can be honest enough to acknowledge it and courageous enough to talk about it to people, and it's not a bad thing.
And I find for me, I don't know if I'm lucky. It does embarrass my daughter sometimes, but when I'm open with people, it opens the door for them to be open
Yeah.
because so many people are really frightened to be open about themselves because they're afraid of being rejected. But I was very lucky when I was in college. I woke up one day and realized that if I wore a mask the whole time and was socially appropriate the whole time, I would die never knowing if anybody liked me or not. So the ones that stick with me are the ones that really know me and forgive the flaws and like the good bits. So it's just a different way of being in the world.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
You're welcome. Have we still, did Jeff ever get back on? I guess this is, so did, I know somebody said that Bobby had, is Bobby is there a Bobby that wants to ask a question or no? No.
Well, that's the one that could do.
Well, I just want to say thank you for the Facebook um, page and your book, Grief Day by Day. And the first time I heard you, you really have helped me to change my perspective, and knowing that my husband does travel with me as well.
Yes.
It's just a new type of relationship, a spiritual relationship. And I talk to him also, and I feel him, and I know that he's with me. But I just want to have just a quick question, like how do you cope with the loss, like the physical part, the physical aspect? It's just that's I have the spiritual, but I'm talking about the physical.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm my honest answer to that is not well. I just bought. This is going to sound funny, but it's kind of funny and sad at the same time. I just bought this like absolutely huge stuffed elephant that I put on the other side of my bed. But I feel like what you said is that I'm always trying to have a relationship with somebody who's in a different form than I am, because even if his spirit is around me and I talk to him and I hear him, I don't have his physical body. I don't see his face. So that's for me a large part of the pain layer. So another metaphor is the sunflower. Like the center of the sunflower is always dark, but it has all these bright yellow petals around it. So the way I think I deal with the physical loneliness is just to acknowledge it and to not allow myself. I think one of the reasons why I got so upset about what happened yesterday when I wound up here was that I purposely plan things so that I don't allow myself to isolate. I don't allow myself to, I call it having accidental good times. Like I know that there are certain people I like to be with. At the beginning, when he first died, I very rarely had a good time, but I kept going out anyway, thinking at some point I would. And now, often when I show up, I do have a good time. Um, so the physical thing is, I've also realized that I'm thinking of, I thought of important people. I think I was watching a documentary about Princess Diana, and I heard that she identified with Marilyn Monroe. There are some people that are lonely, no matter how famous and how beautiful they are. And then I think about people like the Queen Mother and Betty White, who both had husbands they loved and waited like 50 years for them. And to be with them, but had really full lives. So those are the people that are my role models. So I guess that would be another answer is, and I was someplace, I don't know if you all know who Betty White is. But she was an actress, comedian, animal lover, and I was someplace in New York, and she was being very cute and funny. And my husband had been dead maybe 2 or 3 years, and I asked her, "How do you do it?" I said, my husband died, and how do you live without Alan? And she just like stopped and got very serious, and she said, I can't really help you, which is what a lot of people say. She said anything can bring it back. um, a smell of a flower in a garden, walking down the street, and you're right back there with the person. And all I can tell you about is to, again, remember the love. So she actually gave me the same message that my friend who had lost her husband and her son gave me. So, not well, but always by remember. There's one other thing I do actually is I use my imagination. Oftentimes when I go to sleep, I imagine that he's holding me. So I don't know if somebody would say that was crazy or not, but for me, it just makes me feel better to imagine his physicality, even though it's not there. And I also want to say I have perfect admiration and respect for people that remarry. But my experience is that people that remarry who are really happy in another relationship still miss the person they love that died, because everybody is unique. I've somebody that at this point have kind of chosen to be single. But that's also, some people um, have a new relationship and have a physical relationship with somebody else. So again, so much of it is personal choice. And the other
Thank
thing
you
I
so
want to say,
much.
I thank you. I just want to say, I just had this flash of, you all are being so gracious to me and asking me questions. And I really am a very ordinary, stumbly, klutzy, but funny kind of mixed bag of a person. So I always think that if this is something that I can do, this is something that anybody can do. They just have to figure it out and find their way. And I have a letter from my husband where he says he admires me because he watches me stumble and fall down and stand up again. And I think a lot of it is about that is I'm not doing so well right this very second, but maybe like in an hour, well, maybe in 2 hours, okay, if not today, tomorrow. um, to keep going, because we can't see around corners, and to look for the things that, um, again, to go back to what I was going to say, where maybe I could help, or maybe I could laugh. I love making people laugh. Or seeing something beautiful, and being able to see it. Because sometimes it's sad. It's like I'm looking at it and it's really funny, and I can't share it with you. I have to share it with other people. So yeah, it's a really complex thing. So all of us that are going through it, I have tremendous admiration for people that get up in the morning, get out of bed, and do something. So,
Yes,
like this.
I admire Betty White too. I question myself. I question that, like, how did she do it? But I really like what she said, that if she had the best, she don't want the rest.
Right. Yeah. So and it doesn't mean when I say people are my role models, it doesn't mean that I can necessarily do everything that they do, but they give me hope because they've been in the same situation. That's why I did that conference. I mean, I have this friend who survived the genocide in Rwanda, and then her husband died. And she said she feels like she's a bird flying with one wing. And if she can do it, I mean, oh my goodness. I'm constantly amazed at the resilience of the human spirit. So how can I become more resilient and less, because I figure as long as I'm still alive, I can keep working on myself. But also honoring the part where it's not easy. I hope Jeff is okay. I hope he didn't do this on purpose just to see if I could do it. So is there anybody else that would like to say something? About anything? I think we've probably gone over time. Does anybody, do people feel like that? I don't know if there's like a general closing. I don't have anything except to say, I don't know what to say. I feel like I want to say something profound. Just that I have tremendous respect for people in the world that can feel the pain of things that happen, and even if you're, like I said, still breathing, to make that choice and to keep going, because I do really believe that if we're alive, that there's a reason for it. I don't know what it is all the time, but I think that we can always find something. So yeah. So does anybody object if we just, should we like hit our hearts and
Hi, Jan, it's Marla. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I can. Hi Marla, thank
Hi.
you for talking.
Jeff is texting, and I just texted him. He won't be able to get back in. Usually we can't get back in if it's overtime.
Okay.
So I don't know. It was 5 minutes ago that he texted me. I don't know if he's still looking.
Okay, so then I guess that I should just say thank you all for coming, and I'm really grateful that you wanted to be part of this circle. I think that's it really it made me feel a lot better about being stuck in a beautiful place, and I'm going to go out and try and see that it's actually beautiful. All right, thank you, Marla. So I just go off. Is that what I do? Okay.
Sorry. Yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Jen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do
you have his email or text, or you can go, actually, you can go like we do into, hold on a second, into the chat. Can you go arrow back?
I don't know.
You won't get kicked out. I'm still on here.
Yeah, there's an arrow, yeah.
Upper left-hand corner, arrow back?
Yes, I see that.
Okay, now at the bottom, you'll see home and then chat and then profile.
Yes.
Yeah, click the chat.
Okay.
And then connect with Jeff I don't know. Oh, maybe you have to be connected. I'm not sure. Oh, well, walk through the app.
All right. No, it's okay. I don't mind. I just wanted, I don't have like an ending because I'm used to relying on Jeff. So it's thank you everybody that's been hanging out, and I'll just close the app. All right. Take care of yourself. Remember to take tender care of yourself. You deserve it.
Thank you, Jen.
All right.
One more thing. If I wanted
Sure.
to communicate with you, is it through the Facebook that I can?
You can email me at eyeseepic@aol.com. eyeseepic, like IC pick at AOL.com. And if you put grief in the subject matter, I might not answer the same day, but I'll answer in a couple of days.
So it's EYESYE?
No, EYESEEPIC at AOL.com.
AOL, okay.
And it's on the Facebook page, I think, on the side.
Oh, okay.
As well.
All right. Thank
Okay.
you. I appreciate it.
All right. Anyone else? All right. I'm going to turn it off. All right. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.